Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right. I am John Palacio.
And I'm Marlene Cuellar, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Beautiful morning in the city, Marlene. Oh my gosh.
Yes, it is.
But it's hot. you know.
Well, you hear that wind blowing at least. Your windows are open. You hear the trees moving. Don't stand in the sun. That's a different story,
That's
right?
a different story indeed. Don't just stand up out there. And one of the things that we've been saying for years upon years, especially at this time of the year, make sure that you're always hydrated because it is hot, all right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we're in a beautiful country. We're so thankful for actually having each other and what we've got within the country. First order of duty, though, Marlene, is always to take a look at the newscast and see what's the buzz out of there. There's so many things we could actually pinpoint because the newscast last night was a jam-packed one. But for me, we're in Women's Month.
Yes.
And history continues to be made within our country. Our Governor General, Froila Salam, moved from just Governor General Froila Salam, now Marlene, to be bestowed as Dame Froila Salam.
That's right.
The importance of such thing. And, you know, and we've always heard of Dame Minita Gordon, never knowing how she actually got there or why Dame. Like you actually feel like the part of their name, no? But it was actually bestowed upon her by, of course, the Duke of Duchess. And that, of course, you know, was seen throughout the newscast as well. Very important to notice that this is happening in Women's Month. And historically, she is, of course, an indigenous woman. And this being bestowed upon her. Marlene, very, very important for our country.
Absolutely. So she is now Dame Froila Salam. And as you mentioned, you know, I think her appointment as Governor General was history in itself, history making in itself, being a indigenous woman and now having the order bestowed on her, the Order of St. Michael and St. George.
Yeah.
So she was knighted, and now she has a new title.
Yes, she does. She does have a new title. And, you know, I've got to say, not only her was actually at that ceremony.
Yeah.
There were a few more people. Of course, we know that businessman Mr. Feinstein, now bestowed upon him Sir Feinstein.
Yeah.
Because of his contribution to business throughout many years as the owner of the Bennett's Group. And so these things are very important, including some of the police officers or BDF soldiers or, you know, our law enforcement officers were actually anointed as well. Very, very, very important to note as to how it happened. And so we're so thankful that we were visited as a country upon the Queen's Jubilee that Prince Harry, Prince William actually, along
Harry was so 10 years ago.
Yes. And of course, Kate, you know, Princess Kate actually visited Belize. I got to see them, like right up front.
Yes,
Marlene.
you did.
Oh my goodness,
yes,
what a thing, what a thing. Ooh,
At that reception.
I still swept.
There they are. Yeah, you didn't topple over the tree, right? So
I didn't, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for that. But there they are as they were leaving Belize yesterday en route to Jamaica. But we must say, though, not without some controversy there.
Well, you know, I am interested to see what is going to happen in the Bahamas because that's 2 of 3 so far where they are facing protests ahead of their arrival. And similarly, late yesterday, there was a counter-protest in Jamaica as well with persons who said they were welcoming the royals, and it was a smaller protest, definitely, but I think the message seems to be the same.
Yeah.
That people are in a different space, and they are far more in tune with history, and so they're having changing thoughts on what it is like being a realm of the UK. Now, the decisions that are yet to be made, I mean, there are some really interesting reports coming out of Jamaica. We can't verify it as yet, but some are saying that as soon as they leave, they will actually initiate the process of breaking away from the monarchy. But that's just one report, and I haven't been able to. We heard it in one newscast in the UK, and so that's yet to be seen. But it has been something, I think, across the Caribbean that has been discussed.
It has been indeed. I was just trying to look up the Gleaner, of course, which is, I think, the leading newspaper there in that country, to find out what the latest would be.
Well, yesterday they went to play football.
Yeah, yesterday.
So that was interesting.
Drum. I saw that as well.
Yeah. So Prince William actually got into the game, and he was playing football along with them. You know, and there you have it. People who are waiting to see them, to get their photos. We saw the same in Belize as well.
Yeah.
And so I think it's difficult to separate it, but if you consider the fact that there are two things happening there. One, there is this massively well-known, well-followed couple. I mean, she wears a dress and it sells out in few hours,
yes,
you know,
indeed,
no
indeed,
matter the
indeed,
price.
Indeed.
So you have major celebrity power in this couple, but then you also have what they represent as the monarchy. And so, you know, there are two things, I think, if you can separate them for just a moment to see what people are enthusiastic about. But nonetheless, they have started their tour in Jamaica, shorter than ours. It'll be 2 days, and then they're off to Bahamas.
Bahamas, which, like you mentioned, wait to see what the situation is going to be in the Bahamas. One of the things you made mention of, Marlene, which is very important, is their following, especially for Kate. As she wears something, it sells out in just a matter of hours. Speaking of their following, we know that we've also been informed as well that one of the things is that because they've made their visit here, could boost us significantly when it comes to tourism within our country. And speaking of tourism, one of the most attractive thing about our country, Marlene, is the fact that we've got the second largest living barrier reef, the second largest barrier reef in the world. And
see, I always tell my Australian friends we have the largest living.
We've got the largest living.
It's still accurate.
And I like how you flick your hand at it, because we've got something
they
to
get
boast
quite
about.
upset when I tell them that.
But they actually made a visit to the barrier reef, and of course, William and Kate, they took a dive. Yeah.
So they had that private afternoon in Hopkins. Things in Hopkins wrapped up just a little bit after midday. They met with the different conservation groups, and then they had a private afternoon, and that private afternoon was where they got to explore the Belize Barrier Reef.
Indeed.
And it was a private event. So there was no media allowed to follow them, but they did in fact post their own diving
They posted
video,
their dive as well.
which was just beautiful. It looks like they got a little bit of everything, right?
Man, it looked like National Geographic and all. Like, my
They
goodness.
got some shark sighting.
Sharks, indeed. Indeed. They actually did sign to each other. He said, "Are you okay?" She was like, "Yes, I'm okay." So that's a great checkup on each other. But Marlene, we're so blessed, you know, to actually be boasting the largest living barrier reef in the world. And of course, the Duke and Duchess paying that visit to there. I must say that I'm very proud too of their visit to Hopkins and the fact that they could dance. You see there, shake that. My goodness, when I saw that, I was like in awe, goosebumps and everything, knowing that, of course, that's a Garifuna village. I'm a Garifuna person, but more so that we're Belizean, and they showcased it to the best of their ability. That was excellent for us.
All right, so we do have that diving video lined up for you to be able to see, just in case you missed it. They posted it on social media, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, and so we're going to go ahead and check that out now.
Really fantastic to see the underwater environment here in Belize and what wonderful work they've been doing to protect the coral and the fish life. Belize's work on marine protection is world leading, which is crucial when you're protecting the world's second largest barrier reef. And in fact, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it's clear to see that Belizeans value their environment, whether it's the marine environment or the land environment. And it's great to see that their commitments are going further and further, and we should support them and value their efforts to protect both the marine and the land environments.
ago. That's a snippet of their journey that was posted on their online profile on Instagram. I think it's almost like 3 million views
Oh,
in
wow.
less than 24 hours. So really great exposure, showcasing one of the top attractions that we have in the country. A lot of people come here for diving, and so being able to have them experience it and showcase it as well is without a doubt great for tourism.
It is indeed great for tourism, and again, with the largest living barrier reef in the world, then why not? Huh? And they made the right choice as well. And
But-
that's just a piece
Yeah.
of the pie of, when it comes to all the good news that's happening within our country, Mark.
Well, I was going to say, that, wraps up our coverage and their visit. They departed yesterday, and we moved back to some of the things taking place here. This is, of course, a really interesting week ahead.
Yeah.
We do have the budget debate coming up in just at the end of the week. There's the leadership convention for the UDP. So since we're taking our minds off of those things, we can go back to some of the local issues. And one, I know that people this morning are waking up and saying, really, is the increase in the price of chicken.
The increase
Poultry, I
in
should
the,
say.
yeah. And alarmingly, the numbers per capita or per person that we consume, it's a lot of chicken that we consume. And
See, that
every
doesn't
day
surprise me. We eat a lot of chicken.
We eat a lot of chicken in
Yeah.
this country, but the numbers in terms of price per pound is actually going up. It actually went up by 9 cents, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, we covered that last night in the newscast, but people might be wondering as to why is that happening. But they're saying that, you know what? The reason for this is all the overhead that we actually have got to hold up on, and then the fact that hey, the price of feed is going up, the price of fertilizer is going up, and medicine is going up, and the shipping cost, Marlene, is actually going up, and that we're not forgetting fuel prices are actually up as well.
Yeah, which is a huge. I mean, that contributes to all of that.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting the way they broke it down yesterday for a few reasons, because there was another element that I didn't quite consider. Of course, we know the country is making a move towards banning plastics, and so even if you pay attention to what your chicken is wrapped in plastic.
wrapped in
The plate that if you're getting some of the cuts, it's on foam. So they even talk about prices there, as well as shipping and the other necessities that they use in their industry.
Your package, your packaging, and yeah, sure.
Here's the thing, though, and I think they're kind of getting ahead of or preempting what they expect to be an issue, which is that they're asking people to pay attention to possibilities of price gouging. And we were joking about it when we came in, right? Because what the Poultry Association is saying is that yes, the price is going up 9 cents per pound. That is something that they feel has to be done. They're not calling it an increase, they're calling it an adjustment given the realities of costs now. And that's something we have to dive into further. But what they're saying is, that doesn't mean that everyone who sells chicken should now say we have to take up our prices. Because he said, well, nobody really sells you a pound of chicken cooked, right?
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, you go to the tacos vendors, that's not a pound of chicken
not a
there,
pound of
even your
chicken.
rice and beans.
Indeed. So they're totally right with that. And this is definitely one of the things that we must look upon.
Yeah.
And which is price gouging. And there are laws in place to try and tackle that. But it is for those who are actually adhering to what these laws are and how they're actually selling it to us. It is important that chicken is something that we love in this country every day. Somebody eat chicken right now, Marlene. But what are we paying for it, and how do we continue to live with it being at that cost? I've got to say as well, and if I'm not mistaken, it was early last year, that there was a price rise or price raise in chicken, and that was for 8 cents per pound, additional 8 cents per pound.
Yeah.
And so we knew that they had mentioned that coming towards the end of that particular year, that it should have been back to where it normally was. But did it?
Well, shipping costs are up, fuel costs are up, and it's one of those things that I keep on, when we talk about inflation, when we talk about fuel prices, yes, it's about what people put in their car, but then You have to consider that all the products and services we use have to be transported, shipping costs, which we don't talk about enough.
Indeed.
A huge increase there. So whatever they import is now at a higher cost as well. So somebody is going to take on these additional costs. The unfortunate part is it always happens to be the case where it gets passed on to the consumers.
Yeah.
And so you pay higher prices for almost everything. And that's the major concern that's happening. We know there still is the fuel tax increase or the cost of fuel conversation taking place between the government and stakeholders to figure out ways how they can reduce the impact on the average Belizean, because you know it's very concerning. You know, we talk about the economic recovery that the country itself has experienced. And I remember, you know, earlier this week we had an economist, Carlos Magana, talking about, you know, whether or not if you would ask an average Belizean if they felt that the economy grew or rebounded in the past year, they'd say no, because their quality of life, the trickle-down effect, it's not there. So, you know, this is another example of how the cost of everything is driving up the price of another very essential food product for us.
Indeed.
So,
and you know, when especially when that industrial fuel goes up, which is diesel, that's what most industries would use, or every industry would use. If that goes up, then there is the highest possibility that will be trickle down to the consumers. So these are some of the things that people must look upon, Marlene, and it's the trickle down effect.
well, and I think that, you know, I don't want to talk about Belize in isolation, because that perhaps is very misleading to people at home. You know, a lot of our viewers tune in to regional and international news as well. So they're very well aware that, in fact, this is an issue that is taking place globally. Prices, fuel prices are going up, inflation is up. And so this is kind of the economic crunch that is taking place across the globe. But individual countries, and in the case of the U.S., individual states are trying to find ways to reduce those effects on consumers. So that's where I think that we have to start asking more questions about what can be done so that your average Belizean family who have to purchase chicken and maybe fuel for the car to drive their kids to school, that they don't have as much of a pinch on their pocket. I don't know if it's a pinch anymore, it's a punch.
It's a punch. It's not that one whole grab. You know, and so therefore, you're right. You're totally right with respect to that, and what we must look upon. And especially with, you know, the powers that be. These are some of the things that we must look upon. Look at other countries and what they're doing. And if it's feasible within our country, so people could, you know, feel a slight of an ease, at least, when it comes to that. Mar, that's one of the news story from last night as well. I also want to highlight the fact, and we did mention this before we got started this morning, the fact that the Easter holidays is right around the corner. And we know that this particular time of the year, it is very hot. And because it is very hot, especially for those living next to the watering holes of this country, the rivers, the seas, the lakes, you know, these are the places that people would like to flock at, because it seems to bring that cooling effect to people. But every Easter, especially around this time of the year, it's rare that you don't find incidents of drowning. You know, and which leads to talk about one of the stories that we covered last night, and with the unexpected drowning of a baby girl, of a child, a primary school child. I saw that newscast last night, Mark, and you know, knowing that I've got children around that age, it made me scared. You know, I got scared for it. We need to know where our children are. We need to always keep a watch out for our children and make sure that they're safe. At most.
Yeah, that was, you know, I think the account given by the mother, and we have to say that was an interview done with the Pandy Show, and so we were able to get that firsthand account. But that interview with that mother was really heartbreaking. There you have Rebecca Thompson went for a swim on her way home. They were in shallow waters. And she was following a toy and got swept up into the deeper, faster waters. And the godmother that was with her at the time just couldn't catch up. She tried to get after her, but we've been in rivers, you know, you try to run on top of those rocks, you fall and you fall. And that's what happens with being in the water. Things happen so instantaneously, and it is a tragic story. I think, you know, when the mother gets that call and they say, come, just come, don't bring the other kids. I felt like
Your
that
husband,
knot in my stomach, because that has to be such a traumatizing time for them. But definitely our condolences. And it does, as we said, John, you know, give us the opportunity to remind all our viewers that as you head out, as it gets warmer, whether you're going to a river, whether you're going to a lagoon, whether you're going to the sea, you know, just keep in mind that especially when you're in water, you have to be as careful as possible. We usually do water safety
we do that
conversations
around
around
this
Easter, and I always remember, because that's one of the things that scares me with the river and the water pools that can happen. So you have extreme currents in the sea, as we saw in the recent case in Key Cocker, where there's a really strong current, and then you have current in the river as well, and sometimes you have those whirlpools that kind of suck you down, and you don't see them from the surface. That's really the concerning part.
All that action happens right there under the water, and you're not able to see it. And for this reason, we want for folks to be as careful as possible. The same with the pools, Marlene. You know, we're still not adhering to that rule. Hey, when you finish eat, then you have to wait a while before you go on into the water. All of these things are very important, especially when we've got the professionals who would come in and tell us exactly how to, what to, and when to. We need to adhere to these things.
Well, I'm so grateful for all the conversations we have here, because I always remember the water safety tip, which is go with the current. Try to relax.
Try to relax and go with the current.
And allow yourself to float and go along with the current. It's better if you end up a mile on a shore or on a riverbank rather than trying to fight to get back from where you started. Now, you know, a child that age, that's really challenging to ask them, but you know, these are things that you can start to tell the children if you're going to be heading out to waterways, because it's a horrible story.
Wow, what a thing. And again, parents, let's try to be as best as possible for our children. At times we feel we might think this is what they need. It might just not be. All right?
All right.
And that's just a piece of the pie from last night's newscast, as we know there are so many other things, but we need to move on. Let's provide you with some additional motivation for the day, and that comes from the eye opener.
All right, today's eye opener goes like this. By always using our cell phones, texting, and surfing the internet, we actually become less connected and more distracted. We are often lured by the promise of new technologies to make our lives easier and help connect us to others. While they do so in many ways, they also present each of us with opportunities to make new choices about how we spend our time and invest our energy. Most gadgets are generally meant to improve the quality of our lives, but it is when we spend too much time with them that they actually do the opposite. By becoming aware of these tendencies, we harness the power to overcome them and make better choices for ourselves and our families. When we use our discernment about how we invest our personal energy, we can be sure that we choose only the best for ourselves and those we love. Our gadgets can be useful tools for our journey in the material world, but we must not forget that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and that means interacting with people on a personal level. Choices that enliven us and help us feel connected to our world and our loved ones always deserve our full attention and presence of mind, body, and spirit.
You know, it's my response.
Let's just say we're all guilty.
Yeah. And I just want to say,
no stones thrown away.
Long gone. You know, when I listen to this, it makes me feel like somebody from yesteryear wrote it. You know, because that's, you know, I'm always of the belief that I prefer to have a conversation with you. Hey, Mar, what's up, man? How things? And come sit down at the office and then have the conversation rather than having to be texting it. But it is the way of life now. This is what happens. And I do get the fact that they're saying that when we use our discernment about how we invest our personal energy, we can be sure that we choose only the best for ourselves I understand this all. But the way of life now?
Well, I think it's here's one of the things that I try
Let me
to
hear
practice,
you.
and you know it's hard.
It
So we need to be connected at all times, and
Yes.
it doesn't matter what business you're in. You know, there's an email, there's a call, there's a text, there's a WhatsApp, there's something always coming in that needs to be responded to. So you know, there's a blessing in the technology that we live with today that keeps us super connected. But I do think that there are times where you can allow yourself to just have that WhatsApp held up in your phone, or that phone call go unanswered just momentarily. And it's a matter of valuing what you give value to in a moment. I mean, it really is. I have a friend of mine who really started to challenge me with it, that we would just have no phone lunches. And it was hard in the beginning, and now it's so much easier. You just put it aside. And if something does happen, or if something becomes urgent, we take a moment, check it, and put it back. And then you're able to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I'm so conscious of when I'm hanging out with friends, or I'm having lunch or dinner or something with someone, and they're all like, they're on their phone. They're
their
like, yeah,
phone.
I'm listening.
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm like, no, you
That's
don't.
distracting.
You don't. And
Yeah.
you think that you are, but the person on the other side doesn't feel it.
Doesn't
and
feel
so,
it, yeah.
Even in meetings, how many times are you in meetings and everybody's on their phone? And you can only really give as much attention to one thing at a time.
At a time, indeed. But I hear you. But this is something that we must bestow upon, especially not the Gen Z, but Gen Zs. Which one
I
do we
think
have
it's
now?
all of us now.
It's all of us now.
do it. Yeah.
But Marlene, you in a place, you look. If you go right now in somewhere that where young folks are, that everybody like this,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just that's just the way it is now. I'd like to say, hey, that the way of the world now. And you know what they're
Yeah,
gonna
but then
do?
if you don't-
They're gonna make an app that tells you your life belong right there.
Yeah, but look at how phones are changing now. Phones are now coming with built-in restrictions to help to minimize the amount of time that you spend on your phone.
I not got one yet.
Yeah, and it is, why? Because it's clearly understood that humans are meant to connect with each other.
And that's the important part of things here.
And while we
Exactly.
do it
Yes.
virtually, there's nothing like a human-to-human connection.
And that's the message we're trying to pass on to you. We hope that you got that, and we hope that you practice it within the household, within your office, or within the confines of where you find your love. All right, so you do that.
All
but we move
right.
on. Let's take a look at the weather. The heat is on, and the folks are on the line as well. Mr. Verdun is on there. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Yeah, you sound like you're ready to feel the heat. I hope the AC they on.
It's working.
All right, so let's get on into it. Let's talk about the general situation. I see something here about warm.
That's right.
So what should we expect?
Okay, it's going to be warm today, and we can expect mostly sunny skies. Sunny and warm conditions today with isolated afternoon thunderstorms over the mountains.
And partly cloudy tonight, it says here.
That's right, partly cloudy tonight with only isolated showers.
All right. So that's a look there at the 24-hour forecast. Let's talk about the winds. What should we expect?
Okay, winds today from the southeast, 10 to 20 knots. However, we have a caution. We're expecting moderate to rough seas with a caution for large swells, mainly beyond the reef.
Wow. And that, of course, is in our advisories, watches, and warnings. So for folks who would like to venture out there, today might just not be the right day.
That's right, especially the farther out you go, beyond the reef, then the waves should get bigger.
All right. So let's talk about the temperatures, the highs and lows for today.
Okay, highs 88 along the coast, 95 inland, 81 up in the mountains.
Okay.
The lows tonight, we're expecting 78 along the coast, 70 inland, 64 up in the mountains.
Sounding good for the lows. And the extended forecast?
Okay, there's a cold front right now over the Gulf of Mexico, and that should approach us tomorrow night and actually cross us. It will reach us early Friday.
Whoa.
So for tomorrow then, we're expecting skies to become cloudy at times with a few showers or thunderstorms, mainly inland in the afternoon. So isolated shower activity in the morning, increasing a bit in the afternoon and evening, with the showers spreading to most areas tomorrow night.
All right. And how long should we expect the cold front to hover over us?
So we're expecting it by Friday, and Friday, Saturday, a bit cooler Friday and Saturday.
All right.
Is it going to come with a lot of rain?
The rain should be Thursday evening, Thursday night. By Friday, most of the rain should be offshore, so not that much rain, I don't think.
All right. That's the forecast as of today.
That's right. That's right, as of today. Tune in tomorrow.
All right. Well, thank you so very much for that update.
You're welcome.
All right.
Have a great day.
Have a great day. It is that time of the morning. It is time to move on. Now, you know exactly what to expect in the weather. Marlene's favorite, which is the cold front, is
It's
actually...
not just me. I know a
I
lot
feel
of
sort of
people
only you,
who
only
who
you.
love when the temperatures get a bit cooler. And, you know, it's soaking up the last of it because we're heading into the dry season. so.
Indeed, indeed.
But we got to get moving into our show
Indeed,
for
we've
today.
we've got
and
a
it
nice
is-
one.
Well, you know, I was thinking about that this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, there were 23 confirmed cases of COVID-19. And believe it or not, it was 2 years ago exactly
Exactly to
that
the day,
the first
yeah.
case was confirmed in Belize. We were a little behind with our first case.
Yeah.
And so today we're actually going to have a reflection. We have Dr. Marvin Manzanario, a representative of the Chamber of Commerce, coming in to talk about what this has been like over the past 2 years. I know Dr. Manzanario also takes a look at what's the possibilities for the future. More and more, I feel that we are becoming comfortable in settling into this phase of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But we also have to pay attention to what's happening globally. So
Yeah.
today's conversation will be looking at the past 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, definitely one we're looking forward to, and we hope that you are as well. The second conversation, it's all about Women's Month and how it's being celebrated. But there's also women in sports. So Women in Stride as that conversation, and it's all about women in sports as well. So we'll be tackling that in the second conversation this morning.
All right, and what about some delicious treats? So we invaded their space
Yeah,
the
we
other
did. I
day,
thought
creme de la
about it.
creme at the Lighthouse Park, the Sandcast Park, I should say. And yeah, so they're coming to invade our space today.
All right, all right.
And I'm fine with that because they have some delicious treats that we can enjoy.
Once you got treats? All right, come
All
in.
right. Let's hope they give us some tips that you can try at home as well, because I know people are always, you know, playing around with the blender or
Yeah.
cooking up something special. So we're going to find that in the final part of our show.
All right, so we've got to take the break, but just before we do, Marlene, I've got a birthday request, birthday greeting actually, and very important to me, I've got to say, and many times on this show I tell you how much this lady means to me. We're talking about Catalina Reyes. Catalina Reyes raised me from I was about 4 years old to I was about 18 years old. She's everything to me and, of course, her children. Catalina Reyes celebrating her birthday. A happy birthday to you. You have touched our lives in so many ways and will continue to do so. You taught us how to pray and you taught us how to share love. You are a living angel and we're so, so happy that you are part of our lives. Catalina Reyes in Punta Gorda, happy birthday to you. Do enjoy.
All right.
We got to take the
Nice.
break. When we come back, we'll dive directly into our first conversation. Stay with us. We'll be back.
Download the SmartStream app on the Android Play Store and create your account to get access to movies and stream at home or on the go. Prepaid customers can purchase regular data packages or get a discounted rate on a special SmartStream package by dialing 7737. Postpaid customers will be billed monthly. Never miss a movie again with SmartStream.
Your life just got a lot less complicated with Belize Bank Contactless MasterCard Debit Card. Introducing our Standard Debit and MasterCard Platinum Debit Cards. Now you can make purchases anywhere MasterCard is accepted with one tap, pay and go. Your contactless card never has to leave your hands, especially in these times. And your card is embedded with multiple layers of security. Platinum card holders get to enjoy extra benefits like price protection, purchase protection, trip inconvenience, and luggage protection, just to name a few. Start enjoying a cashless lifestyle today with the Belize Bank.
At Cellular World, we are more than just phones. Over the past 16 years, we have grown tremendously with 5 locations across the country. As the market demand grows, Cellular World guarantees to continuously offer our customers new and improved services.
We are your trusted source for all of your electronic needs. We carry a full line of consumer electronic products ranging from mobile devices, tablets, and even business solution products, all from brands you know and trust.
Your shopping experience is important to us. We have invested in our staff to ensure that our customers receive the best service when they shop with us in-store and online.
We know your devices are essential. Our skilled and experienced technicians work tirelessly to get your repairs done quickly so that you can have your devices working like new in no time.
We stand by our products. Shop with us knowing that the purchases are backed up by unsurpassed customer support and warranties you can rely on.
Every team has a winning lineup, and ours works diligently to ensure that we are leading the industry in Belize by providing you access to the latest innovation with customer support that you can depend on. We are Cellular World.
If you're looking for low-cost television advertising, have we got a deal for you? Advertise on Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds is one of the most effective methods for introducing yourself and your business to the community. Use our Daily Classifieds to recruit employees, promote specials, promote your products or services, promote a business opportunity, increase traffic to your website, and advertise items you have for sale. Let us help you save valuable time and money. Call us today at 223-0146 or visit us at our offices on Pony Drive to discuss how we can help your business grow affordably. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Advertise today.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
Welcome back, and we're moving now into our first segment for the morning. Of course, this is our COVID-19 update, all courtesy of Fulltech Systems. Thank you so very much. Reflecting when Belize detected its first case of COVID-19, it was a big scare for the fact that we actually saw everything that was going on internationally. But there were a few people who were actually in the forefront as well, and we've got some of them in with us, 2 of them in with us actually. Dr. Marvin Manzanero, who is the former Director of Health Services, around that time he was, and Catherine Main, who is Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who is representing the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Guys, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, when I saw this morning, I was like, okay, what would I like to know? But Dr. Marvin, Dr. Manzanero, I'd like to start with you. I'd like to start with you for the fact that you were in the forefront. You were the one who actually broke the news. You were the one who actually made us feel calm. Let's get back to that particular day, March 23rd, 2020. What was that day like for you?
You know, that's that entire weekend, because it was a Monday when the news was broken around mid-morning. But perhaps to do a little bit of history of what happened on that weekend, on that sample of that first index case for Belize, or officially identified in this case, was actually on the Friday. So that sample made its way to the Central Medical Lab on Friday evening, and the processing started Saturday went into Saturday evening, and we do a confirmatory test. So that actual result was on the Saturday night going on to Sunday morning. I believe I got the call maybe about 1:30 in the morning on Sunday, and then I couldn't sleep. That's going on to Sunday. I was reminded just a couple of days ago that there was actually a family reunion on that Sunday that I went, and I don't recall that. I remember everything else, but I don't recall that. Where I was just reminded that I wasn't really participating. I was physically there, but I kept getting calls, I guess, in preparation for, giving out the news on that Monday morning. I mean, the relevant persons above me had been informed, and the decision had been taken to break the news on the Monday rather than on the Sunday. But that doesn't mean that work stopped, because we then started the mapping on that Sunday of that particular case with surveillance and all the other elements we needed to take into account. And I believe that week we would go on to identify 2 other cases from that same index case.
Yeah. It's a different lens that you can look back in 2020 with what we know today. But at that time, there was so little known or understood about COVID-19. The only thing that we did have, Dr. Manza, was the benefit of a delayed start. Do you want to put that into perspective for us? I know the World Health Organization had already declared COVID-19, then the novel coronavirus, it was already COVID-19 as a pandemic a few weeks earlier. How did that help us in our response?
Well, it does, and that same, I think, 2-month delay still becomes applicable right now, so we can't lose sight of what's happening in Europe right now. So yeah, you basically have a 6 to 8 week delay, yeah, and recall that the response started even from early January when we started rolling out our influenza plan. We had the master plan, and then we just had to create a separate plan for what was coming. The training had started. An internal COVID-19 team had been created. We sent our staff for training to Mexico City in terms of the lab.
Yeah.
That's important. I think that was almost a month before we got the first case. We started the procurement of lab supplies back then, even though they were limited. I think the first batch we had was only 100 samples that we could have done in country. Mm-hmm. And again, that's things that we need to look at and understand that we were, in a sense, somehow better prepared than when we had faced SARS in 2003, even H1N1 and the bird flu variants that eventually came. Recall when we had H1N1, like a decade before, there was no testing that was done here. All those samples had to go to Port of Spain. Mm-hmm. That there's an opportunity there, and the fact that you are able to better understand where it's going to come from. If you recall, also the flights that were being people that were being banned from certain countries. So there was a lot of work that was happening before that first case eventually arrived on our shores. Yeah. You will also note that the date had been announced of when the airport was going to be closed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the patient that came in, because it was an imported case, came in like the week before the airport actually was closed. So again, we knew that's where it was going to come from. And what you're sharing actually on the screen right there is the first online system that we had. We also had the beauty of being able to create information in real time for persons. Yeah. So that was created, to start the mapping of where cases are going to start to come across the country. So it gives you a head start. I think it gives you a head start for all the subsequent waves that have happened, and for the next wave that is surely going to come.
What are some of the significant markers for you for the pandemic over the past 2 years? Clearly the first case detection was big for all of us, and I always remember kind of seeing your facial reaction as you were the one who delivered the news. And so where the country was scared and concerned, you were at the forefront. So tell me some of the moments in the past 2 years in managing the pandemic that stick out for you.
Well, that's one. The first case that strikes out. The first death that was reported and how that came about, and it speaks of how private and public system situations are understood. Actually, the first 2 deaths, as I recall, were basically managed. And again, you go back to the initial deaths reported were basically managed in private sector initially and then came over to the public system. So I think we were in essence prepared in that light. The fact that we were able to go 50 plus days, I believe it's 53 or 56 days, without a single case being reported. The fact that you have to be changing situations, if you recall the state of emergency that was created in San Pedro and the panic situation where things really got a little bit out of hand because people started leaving the island before you could do any real surveillance.
Yeah, that was a scary.
And I think
Doc, let me go back. I always had questions about that decision because shouldn't it have been expected that if you say the state of emergency come into effect, 2 days later, that everybody was going to try to leave?
Yeah, but you see, there's lots of things with human reaction. I noticed that before the segment got started, you were talking about humans and the social interaction. You can't predict how we are going to react.
Yeah.
Right? And then even after the state of emergency was declared, you will recall that there were boats leaving in the dark with no lights, leaving San Pedro. But you see, what that leads to is what led to decision making eventually. And I know Ms. Cathy was part of the National Oversight Committee, and I'm really thankful, again, because I was perhaps the front of what was happening, but decisions that were made were sometimes done in tandem with business sector, churches, and everybody else by the oversight. But we didn't anticipate that was going to happen then. So that we had so many people on the island that were willing to leave, because it's not only people that worked in the island, there's people who lived in the island who want. But this is important because when the other cases started to be detected, we were in the Cayo district. And we found the link to the Belize district. And I know one of the things we said was, okay, we need to perhaps lock down the Cayo district and maybe the Belize district. And based on the reaction we had in San Pedro is what led to this national lockdown. Because we said, there's no way you're going to be able to control people in a certain district in Cayo and Belize. Mass people are going to start traversing the roads. And that's why we had a lockdown initially that started April 1st, if you recall, and ended the 30th of June. So it starts to again, remember the second wave really started in San Pedro towards the end of July, and how you start monitoring your response.
And
so
let me get Cathy into the conversation here, because when you consider some of the moves that were made, and hindsight is 20/20. I want to start off by saying that. But when you consider some of the measures that were made, the business impact is one that we still are dealing with today. There was the committee. The chamber was a representative on that committee. Cathy, tune us into what that was like as a representative of the business community, facing things like curfews and lockdowns and no movements and no inter-district travel.
Right. So it was intense. Perhaps that's the best word to describe it. In the sense that COVID is and continues to be the unknown to some extent, right? We've learned so much, as Dr. Mansa referenced, for us to be able to the prediction components are there a lot more now. But it was rather intense to figure out how to apply what we've seen in other countries to Belize, right? And there was most definitely, we knew, tremendous economic effects. There was the social angle of it. How do we blend? There were the lives that were at risk just listening to the conversation about San Pedro, that was one of the toughest decisions. Wow. Because we fully understood the impact that was very huge, and we had lots of very substantive conversations and debates at the table about how it would affect all these various sectors. And from the business end, most definitely that was a huge concern. But the question was, and it was a constant process of trying to think bigger picture. The question was, if we, at that initial stage, if we don't do this, what does that mean for the rest of Belize? What does that mean for, the wider economy? There was so many questions, and it was never a question of, this is the right answer. It was a question of what was the answer given the circumstances and given the information that we had at play that would minimize and enable us to manage the risk. And that comes right back to business, because that's what we have to do. We're no different from any other environment or relationship, if you want to call it that, right? Indeed. We're trying to manage risk, and out the gate it was pretty tremendous. I was doing some reflection and going back through some statistics and numbers to try to identify. And when we compare the statistics from the BCCI, we did do some internal surveying for our members, and also those from Beltrade. Beltrade had kicked in and was working to try to identify from the various resources and connections and communication networks they had. And we're looking at about 14, something in the mid-teens in terms of closure. Right. And that was primarily the tourism industry. And now we know, how we knew, but now we know in numbers how significant the tourism industry was to our economy,
Indeed.
With 40% of GDP, for instance. Right. And we saw high 80s, we saw 85, 87% of businesses saying we are going to be impacted. And we are expecting losses. And we saw, at some of the big numbers we saw coming into to March, April, we saw about 23% unemployment or loss in jobs, so to say. We also saw, because I wherever possible, we got to think about the solution and the silver lining or the lesson learned. And we also saw a lot of businesses say, we do not want to downsize. In looking and reviewing on all of this, one of the things that the businesses were asking for was, we need help to identify ways to retain our employees, right? The question about access to financing was a big question as well. I remember conversations about what was happening in Italy, and as I'm sure you remember, Italy was very much impacted, and what the Italian banks were doing at that time to offer resources available and funding and extensions, so to say, for businesses to be able to survive this, right? Because we also had no idea how long it would take.
I think.
Sorry, John.
One of the things that stood out to me was at the lockdown, at the lockdown point. And I always wanted to get from, of course, the chamber, what was that like, knowing that, okay, a lockdown is coming, business will be tight, there won't be a lot of people moving out there. What was the utterance from the business community, Kathy?
The utterance from the business community, it was mixed. There were many that were, no, we can't lock down, but there were others as well, and we can't really describe the percentages of, and I think in terms of the way forward, what I recall most importantly was a mentality and a thought process, specifically from the chamber and from the conversations we had internally. that we need to identify a way to survive this, right? So it was a conversation about the now, but it was a conversation about the future going forward. And, you know, given the circumstances and what we saw at that time and what we were hearing as well, because it must be referenced that we did, you know, Dr. Mansa was attending a lot of these WHO sessions and coming to us with feedback and input from those conversations. And, you know, and it was, that's why intense is the word again, because there was no fully correct answer, right?
There was
and
no
we
precedent.
we tried to say, no, you know, things can't be locked down fully. But the question was, if we don't lock down, what do we do? Now we see a different approach. And obviously, you know, that approach is, in my view, a better approach, right? If you want to say it that way, or a more balanced approach. But the question was, that was the best approach that we could have possibly tried to balance between all of these components as well at that time, and the knowledge we had and what was happening and the experiences. And coming back, you know, I remember a lot of questions about how do we get out of this as quickly as possible and as safely as possible? Where was the test, you know, what was the opportunities and what could we do with tests to control this? How could private sector be more involved in supporting those efforts to enable us to be able to evaluate where the risks were and control the situation as best as possible as well?
So let me ask Dr. Mansa a question here, because I think one of the things that doesn't get stated enough is that the Belize response was based on the Belizean reality, and that is where our healthcare system was and what it could accommodate. And while there are always efforts made in improving healthcare, that still is a reality for us today.
Yeah, but and going back to also what Kathy just mentioned, you know, in terms of what was being shut down, understand that there's the element of the human factor where even if businesses were not shut down, people basically out of fear shut down situations. So you have some people that were not moving at all. So people were talking about the tourism, but the tourism sector was being shut down anyway because people stopped being a tourist. What you are saying is very important, yes, because we were looking at our situation and we had to internalize what was happening outside and seeing how best we could manage. But even in that, and even today, you know, whatever we were doing, and I was reviewing the data for today's show, you know, Central America was still looking at us because they said, you know, how comes you went down so many days without having a case?
Yeah.
I used to have meetings with CARPHA every month, every day. We were on a WhatsApp conversation at 6 in the morning because it was 8 o'clock for them. And they were also looking at Belize because Belize's situation in the Caribbean is a little bit unique because all of these are Caribbean islands isolated.
Yeah.
We were in a land between two countries and Mexico having raging numbers almost all of the time and not locking down anything.
So we're looking at the graphs now. That's Belize to the bottom, right? To the bottom.
Yeah, that's from the IDB actually. We were one of the last, that's when we had gone many days. Those are like the last countries standing, if you will.
That's when we were at 0 cases, I think, for about a few months?
From middle of April to June, first couple of weeks of June. And as I said, people in the Caribbean region would look out to us and say, okay, what are you doing? What is the plan? What's your public health measure so that we can capitalize? Because as Kathy said, we were learning from each other. We couldn't necessarily look at what Italy was doing in terms of their health system, their economy. We had to look at economies that were similar to ours. So even when airports got closed down, Jamaica would look at us and say, okay, how are you going to go about opening this? How do you close down schools? Remember, schools didn't really close down. People just stopped sending their
kids to school.
That week of that very week when we identified the first case, before the first case was announced, the week before, I know my son was going to school and nobody showed up that entire week. So things were being shut down out of fear, if you will. So yeah, it's the reality of Belize, but it's also being able to learn from that experience, because whatever was done wrong or whatever was done right, you need to be able to rectify as you move along, because something is going to come up. So you learn from that. I mean, learn from all the plans, modify your plans that are there, and you have to move on.
I think, you're right, because I've also thought of, the country shut down, I think, or peak at that time was about 18 cases. And we've had days where the number of active cases are over 10,000 since then.
Yes.
But we knew so little about COVID-19 in early 2020.
Yeah.
You said something earlier, Doc, and I want to come back to that, because in the very beginning, there was a lot of look back at 1918 and what happened there. And there were many similarities, but that includes that there are, in fact, waves. And there are the times in between where it seems like life will go back to normal, and then you saw another spike.
Another spike, yeah.
How many waves do you consider that Belize has actually had? Because shutting down at 18, I don't know if we can really call that the first wave.
Yeah,
it's a ripple, because that's whatever it was. I mean, you can't deny the fact that people died even if in that first wave.
Yeah.
And those are cases that you managed to identify. You could have had more asymptomatic carriers and people who eventually left the country, so you never know. Then we had that second wave started in July, and I think it peaked until January of last year. And the third wave with the Delta.
Delta, yes.
Delta, and then the fourth with, I think, Omicron.
Yeah.
The first wave, I don't think we'll know that's probably the original variant. The second wave, I know people have said it's the Alpha variant that was creating that, or the Beta variant. If you look at the literature, it doesn't seem that would be, because we started to have our cases right around the election.
Election was a spreader.
Yeah.
I mean, if we...
So the Alpha variant wasn't really in circulation in the region. And that more than likely is that unknown variant that the Mexicans have identified that caused their wave and was never really labeled. I think that's the same variant that eventually infected me. So I think we have had 4 waves, and I mean, the first ripple, if you will, but I think it's 4.
Yeah. And because time is winding down, I don't want to lose the ability to ask Kathy, or to actually say, though, Kathy, that for some people, having to be out of a job actually caused them to create their own business, and that's one of the things that we actually see happening at this particular point. Let's talk about that, Kathy. What have we identified or seen so far with respect to businesses, and how business is actually growing at this particular point?
Great question, John. And there's so many learning lessons, and to talk about another word that begins with I think ingenuity is a word, and we saw that from the unemployment. And if you all will recall, at some point the unemployment numbers, including the underemployment component, got as high as 60%.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of micro businesses included in there. They were on the front line, if you want to say it that way, of businesses that got affected. And you saw a lot of new things come out of that. Let's start with some of the basics. Here, we are still using Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom was not something that we thought was a part of our normal form of doing business.
You're right.
And or even communicating, right? We saw, the BPO is a great example, and I can speak to the BPOs because I'm in that industry. And I remember the incredible ability to come together, right? And there's that human angle of it there, where we came together and we said, guess what? We are all in this together. That's a very used statement, but it is a very true statement. Mm-hmm. And we came together, we identified ways to enable employees to still work, right? Getting them home. That was a tremendous effort and cost. And most people don't even know what that entailed. That meant, hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in networks and technology from the BPO sector to get people home. You know, we're also talking computers, we're also talking internet arrangements. You know, there is a lot of work put into, and I'm specifically talking from the BPO industry. You know, there was also, you know, these components with agro-processing, with there was so much at play. There was the identification of, you know, a big concern, as you may remember as well, was the PEG. What's going to happen, right? The talk of devaluation was a conversation as well, right? And a very
restrictions on foreign exchange. That was
right.
Credit card, everything, like, you know.
Exactly, right? And what did that mean? So there were these huge components of, you know, and we're so small at the ending of the day of an economy, and we're so interconnected in so many ways. You know, looking back at the statistics again, how tourism affected directly and shipping affected directly, agriculture, you know, sugar, energy, etc. You know, the developments that had happened, coming back to the BPO component with technology and where we were at that point where it was affordable for not all, but more than prior. That helped tremendously to enable, you know, a number of persons to go home. And as Dr. Mansa, as you all mentioned as well, there was a real fear. There were a lot of people that, you know, that wanted to be in this isolated environment where possible. And it was a reality in the businesses as well. And, you know, our human capital, as we know, is extremely significant. It's our biggest asset, as we all say on the balance sheet, and in terms of both angles, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, being able to have persons be able to function within a business environment meant that we had to adapt. Meant that we had to, you know, work in ways that were different. Yeah. There's a lot of service providers that still have a hybrid arrangement where they have persons coming into office, but quite a number of persons still working from home.
Can I jump in there and ask about that? Because that's something we see very, very much in the United States, the debate over returning to work or returning to the office. Some places are saying, you know, it isn't even necessary to go back into an office. Do we have any inkling of that in Belize?
That's true. That's true.
That's a question. I would say the answer is there is some of that, most definitely. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an individual business decision based on culture and structure of the business itself. There are some businesses that the work from home environment may well offer lots of benefits, right? There is a benefit to working from home in this, and if you are a result-driven culture where it's less about, you know, whether you are there in front of, let's just say, a counter to serve a customer, but more about the reporting and the actions on the ground that you can do, like for instance, accounting, like for instance, auditing, right? Yeah. For instance, legal services. These are examples where, you know, where you don't need to be speaking to an individual all day, every day to get your job done, right? Yeah. Whereas there's other businesses that required that level of communication just by the nature of their business and their operations. So I think, you know, COVID has changed the world. What we have to look at is what are the lessons learned? What makes us more agile? Yeah. What makes us more sustainable, right? What enables us to be able to produce and be as efficient as possible? And what's a good balance with, you know, what encourages and what's a safe environment for employees as well, right? Businesses understood that if you were not careful, you would end up closing down nonetheless because COVID would come to your doors, right? So there was all these angles that had to be considered too.
Yeah. All right. So Dr. Amanda, I do want to get in one question here. I saw your presentation that you put together, and your final point is a warning, in fact. It's a really interesting time because COVID is still around, and we know what's happening in the rest of the world. But it kind of feels like we're all getting back to what is our new normal, living with COVID. tell us a bit about your insight as to what lies ahead. Do you think that this will simply be the way we exist now, with an illness that can potentially kill people, but there are preventative measures in place and now treatment?
Yeah, so I had put that slide because somebody who, and I think the name is right there, Rika, who had done that for the healthcare workers when we went through that lapse. And I sent also to the producer a separate slide because, yeah, it's not going to go away. And as I said, we need to be able to learn from what's happening in other countries. But I think even to piggyback on what Kathy said, you see that slide there that says Omicron, the original strain in dark blue, and then the red one that's now starting to become prevalent, and the numbers that are there.
That's the stealth Omicron?
Yeah, that's the one. So for a country like ours, if we are not careful, or even for countries who don't have newer technologies, we might, that might not be able to be detected, and you might already have it. So we need to be able to understand that we need to learn from what has happened. And I think there's an important structure here with Kathy, we just mentioned, in terms of people going to physically go back to the office. If we are still demanding that an 8-to-5 job in this new norm, then I think we haven't learned anything from COVID. I mean, people are moving away from this 8-to-5 structure where you can. And even countries such as Europe, where they're cutting back their work days to 4, working hours to 6 instead of 8. CDC in some departments, CDC working 3 days in the office, 2 from home, because your level of productivity might still be the same. So if we are doing those decisions based on the previous structure, then it shows that we haven't learned anything from COVID. And I think there's 2 words that I want to highlight, even from a personal viewpoint, is we should have become more resilient. And I think resilience and empathy are the 2 words that from the social structure that we are as human beings. And I think it's the same thing that becomes applicable to health systems, businesses, and everybody else. Resilience. If we don't know how to live, and you mentioned the right adjective, the new norm, as we had said 2 years ago, I don't think we are going to go back to whatever was normal. It is a new norm.
Kathy,
this is the new life that we're living. Let me just ask one more question, Dr. Manzanero. What classifies the end of the pandemic? What are the markers that will be used?
Very valid question. That's actually an open discussion at WHO to see when you're going to classify the end of the pandemic and when it becomes something that you can call, okay, it's an endemicity kind of situation. There's not a straight answer, and I think it's going to, because the other issue is when are you going to consider an outbreak, right? Because, I mean, you had an outbreak in the first case, but when you go to the epidemiological definition, it might be outbreaks once you start having new clusters coming up. So I think that definition should be coming up before the end of the month in terms of when it is no longer considered a pandemic, but it's an endemic situation. But I think,
do you foresee that declaration being made soon?
Yeah, I think by the end of the month.
Sweet.
But I mean, the definition of what it will mean then, because I think it might be regions or countries taking their own definition based on that. But again, this should have been a preparation, because when you look at One Health approaches, when you look at global health and how globalized we are, whatever happened in 1918 may not be comparable simply because we live in a globalized village. So if we are moving in terms of One Health communication and all these elements, technology notwithstanding, I think this is, I mean, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we should see it as a rehearsal, because I still think that there's going to be something that is going to be much more, or can be much more lethal, higher mortality. It doesn't even have to be the way it was spread. It could be aerosol, it could be blood, just like Ebola. There's lots of things that can happen. So I think it's going to eventually happen.
So who's documenting the lessons learned from the planning and execution for this pandemic?
I have, I'm writing books. I have people in the region still reach out to me in terms of what has happened and what's happening now. I still review information on a daily basis. Colleagues from Central America, colleagues from Mexico, Caribbean, still, we still dialogue almost every day now. because it's not only COVID-19, but the lessons that it leaves for a broader health system.
Yeah.
As it is right now, I am going to a lecture from one of my alma maters that will look at COVID-19 and what it means for researching tuberculosis, because tomorrow is World Tuberculosis Day. So lessons learned for almost forgotten disease, because even tuberculosis patients fell through the cracks over the last 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Same question to you, Kathy, because this is a lesson. I know continuity planning is critical for businesses. You know, how does the chamber, private sector, kind of drive that message home that you can't just plan for hurricanes anymore? We now have to plan for pandemics.
Right, and indeed, so you know that was, and you know, pandemics was something that we, for whatever reason, we just did not factor in that would be, you know, we are where we were gonna be where we are right now, and so it was rather intense. You know, I think the lessons learned is I like what Dr. Mansa mentioned. You know, it's the movement forward in you know, taking the lessons, learning them, applying thus with, you know, with skills and a communicative way of being, but also with empathy as well. And I think some of the key lessons learned is, you know, businesses need to prepare. They need to be. It's the same lessons that we've known for quite some time. It just, COVID reminds us how significant it is that we have or continually reflect and identify ways for us within the business community to be able to, you know, be as agile, as strategic as possible as well. There were some key points that, you know, stood out, quite conversations that we had about what was necessary.
Yeah.
And some of the conversations included, you know, tax reform, which is a conversation that we need to continue to have, right? Conversations about, you know, foreign exchange availability, which continues to be a reality, right?
Yeah.
2 years later, we talked about expenses, you know, for business, including fuel, right? Which is a conversation that we've been having again recently. And so these are conversations, and what it all comes down to is ensuring that we within Belize set up and have a business environment that is most conducive to well-managed and agile and sustainable and transparent business and a transparent business environment, or an economy across the board that is better prepared for the next disaster, whatever type of disaster it may be, right? This sort of disaster has proven to be much worse than any given hurricane, because there's an end to that hurricane. This one is still not
It's still
ending.
ongoing. Yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right there, Kathy. And I'll tell you what, there's so much we could discuss with this, because I've still got a lot of questions, but we do hope that we could get you guys back again so we could continue to discuss along the lines of this. We're so thankful you've joined us this morning. Dr. Mansa, thank you. Kathy Main, thank you so very much. And here's to wishing you a very good day.
Thank you
very much.
All right.
You all take care and be safe.
All right. We're about to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about Women in Stride. Now, this is an event you don't want to miss. Women in Sport. We've got the folks to talk to us all about it when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customer's experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
My name is Julie, and I'm a single mom raising a 10-year-old son. I am the director for a conservation organization. When I started working in the field of marine conservation, it was absolutely male-dominated. It still is male-dominated. One of my first jobs was as a manager out on a remote island with all male staff reporting to me. And one of my assistants was very upset with me and actually told me, the only woman who ever tells me what to do is my mom. And I have my son, and I really do want to show him that really anything can be done, and it doesn't matter who you are. From day one, I've been teaching my son that any job that a man can do, a woman can do. And he has learned this, and he now preaches this to friends and even my colleagues.
Live and let live. Respect for all Belizeans.
Todo beliceño merece tener una conexión de internet de calidad, rápida y confiable en su hogar. Para clases en línea y trabajo desde casa, es la nueva forma de vida. Diginet es el proveedor número 1 de servicio de fibra óptica, impulsando la transición digital de Belice. Y ahora nuestro servicio de Diginet es aún más accesible con nuestro nuevo plan de entrada. Por tiempo limitado, tú y tu familia pueden disfrutar de 20 megabits por segundo por solamente $49 mensuales. No más clases perdidas ni reuniones virtuales interrumpidas. Te está costando mucho tiempo y dinero. Diginet es mejor que cualquier opción de cable o servicio inalámbrico. Visita cualquier Digistore hoy y suscríbete para la conexión más rápida y confiable de Internet para el hogar en Belice. Ven a ver lo que te has estado perdiendo. El mismo servicio de fibra de alta calidad, rápido y confiable, ahora a un precio aún más bajo. Para más información, visita www.livedigi.com/Diginet. Digi, nuestra telecomunicación nacional.
Together we can stop the violence by being responsible and respectful partners and fathers in the future.
I will take responsibility to respect women and girls and hold other young men accountable who use hurtful behavior and speech.
Toxic masculinity traits and harmful social norms about how men should behave contributes to gender inequality and violence and fear that women and girls face.
I realize that gender-based violence is a problem that will never end until all boys and men work to end it by resolving conflicts without violence.
We all have a responsibility, and that is why we encourage others to spread this message, to commit to advancing gender equality and to end gender-based violence.
I commit.
I commit.
I commit.
I commit.
I commit
to make changes to end violence in my life
and elsewhere.
Together we can stop the violence.
And welcome back. Just like that, we're back and we're moving now into our second segment for the morning.
Yeah, we started the running in here already. Thank you, Stephen.
That's the way it is. That's how we do it. But nonetheless, this one is all about women in sports. It's called Women in Stride, of course. It's an event to promote women in sports and celebrate Women's Month. For me, I hold it dear. I hold it dear simply because we must respect and we must highlight our women because they are our strength. In with us this morning to talk about it, we've got Alan Sharp, General Secretary for the Belize National Olympic and Commonwealth Games Association, and Jane Usher, one of my favorite athlete, representative women in Sport Commission. Good morning and welcome to both of you.
Good morning and thank you very much for having us.
Yeah. It's always nice to have you guys in. Now let's jump on into it. Women in Stride. What are we talking about there?
Women in Stride, we're talking about an event
to encourage participation in physical activity. So it does not matter your level, it does not matter your competitive level. We just want people, Belizeans on a whole, women especially, to come out and get moving. So it's an event to launch the Women's Commission. It's in conjunction with Women's Month, the Women's Commission in Sport, I should say. And it's going to be on Saturday. So what we did was we wanted to get as many people involved as possible, or what we're doing. So we're not just doing a run or a bike ride. We're trying to do as many activities to get as many people involved as possible. So we're going to have, starting at 6 a.m. on Saturday, the 26th of March, we're going to have 3 events going simultaneously. You can either choose to do a run, a walk, or a bike ride. Thereafter, you will return to the venue, which is the BTL Park, and you will be able to either sign up for, continue your morning with a yoga class or a body fit class. And a body fit class is just using your own body weight to do exercise. So that's going to be run by Miss Karen Rosito, and the yoga class will be run by Miss Michelle Williams from Shanti.
Jane, women in sport. You've been in sport for a long time. Not mean old. Not mean old. I know to say old. But let's talk about the recognition that women get in sport in Belize. Are we seeing this? Are we seeing it at the number we'd like to? And how do we expect to try to bring that up? What are your thoughts?
Definitely, I think that we're seeing it more than we used to previously. However, we're definitely not seeing it at the level that we would want to. We want to get people rallying behind our female teams more. We want to get people excited about seeing women participating more, and we want to get more women participating. That is what we need. We need more girls, we need more females to come out and get active and get competing in our sports, because we can't expect to have the same level as men, because there are just so many more men in sport, until our girls get out there and start playing.
I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things in my mind. It's kind of like catch-22. It's the women who are involved in sports who don't get that much support, and seeing less women in sports, it doesn't generate as much energy for others to want to get involved. So this Women in Sports Commission, or Commission in Sports, what's the plan beyond this launch?
Okay, so the plan beyond the launch is exactly that. We want to try to do seminars and to do other activities just to get women to gain that self-empowerment and self-confidence to know that sport goes beyond actually playing. You know, in order to see women involved, you need to have like a role model in different capacities. So there's coaches, there's referees and umpires, there's administrative level, and we need more women represented at all these levels of sport, not just on the playing field. And so women need to know that perhaps if you have a female coach, you would be more comfortable coming out to playing more as a girl. You know, so we need to build the entire spectrum of females represented in sport, not just on the playing field. But definitely we need it on the playing field as well. So there are going to be seminars to encourage all these levels of sport. There are going to be more encouragement of more activities. And while we're not excluding boys, it's not about excluding males. You know, it's kind of like a he for she movement as well. We want everybody to come out and participate together, and everybody to know that while we're pushing women, we're bringing everybody along.
Frank, we've seen, and you've been on here with us countless times, and this is actually as coach for the female volleyball team. We've seen our females out there and truly represent, because for some reason or the other, this is at heart for them. Let's talk about where we are with female sports in our country.
Well, I think like Jane said that we are growing. Female volleyball is doing well. Female football is growing very rapidly throughout the country. Softball has always been strong in female. And I think other sports are now starting to look at it. There are other sports that that will need to, actually by the International Olympic Committee Charter, will be strongly encouraged to include female sports. So you have some popular sports like basketball, more females in cycling, in athletics. These are areas that need to grow. I know the federations are trying, but as Jane mentioned, a big part of the Women in Sport Commission is teaching leadership and then to encourage the young ones to be a part of it as well. So it's coming from two sides, where, for example, right now at the national federation level, Belize Olympic Committee has 18 national federations affiliated with it, and if I'm not mistaken, only 2 have female presidents, tennis and sailing. So we need to see more of that happen. We need to have more female leadership, just like in the House of Representatives, let's say.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference when you see your major leaders being women.
How many of those 18 federations have dedicated female teams?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I can say that it needs to grow.
Yeah.
Because
would we say half? Less than half?
I would say just about half. Just about half. Because you have some sports that are predominantly male by nature, rugby, but yet
women can play rugby.
Women have played rugby. Actually, Belizean women, including her sister, played rugby when she was away. So you have to get to that point, and I think to Jane's point, that right now, even at the very base level, let's say at primary school level, you're not seeing the level of participation of females compared to males.
Yeah.
And that's a cultural thing as well, that we have to also address. And I mean from both sides. One is obviously the parents need to feel more comfortable with who's there. So the Women in Sport Commission, actually one of their things they work with a lot is called safety in sports. They work a lot with creating policies so that there's safety for girls, safety for boys as well, for kids, so that you make sure that you ensure you have policies to make the parents feel comfortable in having their kids being trained by a particular person. So that does play a big role.
It's an extension of gender stereotypes, you know, the amount of risk you'll allow the boy to take in sports versus girls.
Right.
So it's countering it from that end as well.
Yes.
But, you know, I think perhaps it goes back to talking about some of the benefits. And Jane, you've been involved in sports, in so many different sports, you and your family, for such a long time. You were paddling in La Ruta, you were cycling in races, you know. So let's talk about why having girls involved in sports from even a young age can benefit them in their adult life.
Well, I mean, sport just gives you so many life skills. It does. It teaches you teamwork. It builds your confidence. It builds your ability to interact with just anybody. You know, you have a topic of conversation as soon as you meet someone. Sport has so many physical, but not only physical, mental benefits as well. It's a way to beat stress, and it's a way to take some time and do something for yourself that's keeping you healthy, but also could make you happy. You need to find something that you enjoy. We don't want people to be like, oh, I have to get up and go to the gym. You know, I mean, it should be something that is your
Isn't
time.
That everyone though?
No, well, no. Actually, some people do get excited about their time to go and work out or to go and exercise. You know, and we don't have. Belize is getting there, but in other countries, there are so many little communities. You know, this is my time. I'm going to go and take half an hour for myself, and it helps you to clear your mind, to take away from the stress of the normal day, and you then get back re-energized because it stimulates your body, but it could also clear your mind. And sport has so many benefits for the body and the mind that I think it is important, you know, like Marlene was saying, you know, there are so many gender stereotypes, and then women just get caught up in their day-to-day lives. You know, they're shuffling the children around, they're going to a lot more women are working these days. that you never take that time for yourself.
Yeah.
And you know, and if you would do that, you would find that maybe your day would be a little bit more productive or calming, you know.
So this is a complementary effort, I guess. This is getting girls and women interested in becoming athletes.
And let me just add there though, this is also, as Jane mentioned, it's also for men who support women.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very important, I think, that the men who support women come, because they play a big part.
Yeah.
Jane just now mentioned the women are shuffling the kids. Well, the women don't have to always shuffle the kids. The man has to be the person to support.
Yes.
When it's her time to go practice or play tennis or whatever it is,
That's right.
he has his part. When it's his time, you roll,
reverse. Yeah.
So this is very key.
And I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was going to ask about the supportive structure, because we've had female athletes on the show so many times in so many different types of sports. And there's also a lack of support from the business community or from the federations themselves. So while we work hard to get interest, how do we build up the other side of this?
Well, I think it's through some of the seminars, and this is a launch of the Women in Sports Commission. So the International Olympic Committee and the Olympic Solidarity, along with the Belize Olympic Committee, is going to be pushing this, because it's something now that's become, everybody's more aware.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we must move forward.
Yeah.
And Belize wants to be one of the leaders. We don't want to be one of the followers. In the whole Caribbean, I'd say about half the countries or so are just starting their Women's Commission. Some have it well established, like Trinidad and Barbados. But some are just starting, and we want to be one of the people that are in that leadership.
Indeed.
But having the programs to lead is very important. And if I may go back to what Jane was saying just now, this is important. I think that sport or any activity that young girls get into reduces their chance of getting into negative extracurricular things.
Activities,
Making better decisions.
Yeah.
It apparently, the statistics show that you're 80% less chance of having an early pregnancy.
Yeah.
Just because you have a different focus, just because you're entertained by other things. Belize's top health issues, hypertension, heart disease, diabetes,
obesity,
all sport reduces all of that. But you have to start early to develop an active lifestyle, so that you not necessarily have to be at the gym. You might want to walk, you might want to ride, you might want to play volleyball. But it's an active lifestyle for the rest of your life.
But then it comes to it comes down to this grassroots thing, and this is where we always need to start, because if you teach them from now, chances are that's what they'll abide by. Which leads me to ask the question again: when it comes to the Women in Sports Commission, what are we going to do for grassroots, for the younger ones?
Well, the Women in Sport Commission, what we need to understand, it's basically like a support. It's starting the conversation. It's advising the federations on how to build their programs. You know, and you're definitely right. We need to start at younger levels. And I think right now that's what we need to do in Belize. We need to create a collaborative system where everybody is not operating on their own. We need to come together so that everybody's trying to do the same programs in their respective fields, so that we know that what we are trying to do is build sport, build physical activity at all levels throughout the life spectrum. So starting at the very bottom, the child, we need to see little leagues in Belize, we need to see, you know, T-ball. We need to have these kids have something to do at like 5, 6 years old. And then they go into school, we have a good school. Right now I think that's where the main focus of the National Sports Council is in the school system, so primary school, high school. But what happens when you come out of high school? You know, where do we go? Where do we find where do we find our communities of sport after? And that is what we need to build. And we need to do that collaboratively with the Olympic Committee, with the National Sports Council, with the federations, all working together hand in hand to build this. And what our role is to have all these organizations also doing it for women at the same time as men, because it's just so much easier to do it for men all the time.
Well, yeah, and I think with a commission in place, at least there's an entity that can raise the question and say, okay, but what about the girls? Or what about the women? So the official launch of this commission is on Saturday.
Yes.
All right, and you have something for those who are very athletic, if they want to jump on a bike. Is it a race or is it just a ride?
It's just a ride because we want as many people involved as possible. So what we have decided to do is not make any of them races, not even the running, not the walk, not the bike ride. And instead of giving first, second, third, we will be putting everybody who participates in a raffle. And so they will have an opportunity to win some prizes out there. And we have sport-related prizes. So we have some jump ropes, we have some exercise bands, some water bottles.
Okay.
And we even have one of the bigger prizes, which is like headphones that you can connect to your phone for when you're working out. So it's just to encourage people in physical activity and to come on out. Exactly. I mean,
and bring the kids.
And bring the kids. It's for all levels. We do have that as well. Thank you for reminding me. We're giving one prize for our youngest participant and one prize for our most senior participant, just because we're trying to promote it across the board.
All right. And so this is for women and men. It's for
everybody.
Just for everybody. Come on out, support. And it's this Saturday.
Saturday.
Where again?
BTL Park. So we'll be at the Digipark on Newtown Barracks.
Registration on site between 6 and 6:30 a.m.
Well,
Sounds like
you need to get your name in the raffle. So you need to sign up.
All right, this is great. This is great. Jean, thank you. Mr. Shamp, thank you so very much for joining us. This is a great opportunity to actually highlight our women, especially in this month. Let's go on out and do it together. All right, thank you guys for joining us this morning.
Thank you too. Don't be shy, come on out.
All right, when we come back, we're about to take a break. When we come back, though, we'll be joined by folks from Creme de la Creme. We take over for their part, then they go take over for we studio. But who does it better? That's when we come back.
Hello, friends. This is Dr. Bob Roberts with another 60-second sermon from God's Word.
Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the Word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. Henry Ward Beecher once said, "The church is not a gallery for the exhibition of eminent Christians, but a school for the education of imperfect ones, a nursery for the care of the weak ones, a hospital for the healing of those who need assiduous care." But this costs money, and people often complain about the church always preaching and teaching about giving. I think the best answer to this objection was given by the great preacher Alling Redpath. He tells a story of a family who related how that when their son was born as a baby, he cost them a lot for doctors and medical bills. Then he began to grow, and he cost them a lot for clothes and customary expenses. He then went to school and cost even more. He went to college and then cost them a small fortune. Then he got sick and died. And since then, they said, he hasn't cost us anything. The church that does not cost anything is dead. As long as the church is reaching out and people are giving, the church will remain alive and well. When that ceases, then the church will simply become dead and ineffective. What are you doing in keeping your church alive? Today's 60-second sermon has been presented by Christian Foundations of Faith in cooperation with the Baptist churches in your area.
Introducing MaBabyliss.com. Your best solution in home appliances is now one click away. With countrywide delivery, it's easier now than ever to go Mabe. www.mababyliss.com. Enjoy life easier with countrywide delivery.
Download the SmartStream app on the Android Play Store and create your account to get access to movies and stream at home or on the go. Prepaid customers can purchase regular data packages or get a discounted rate on a special SmartStream package by dialing 7737. Postpaid customers will be billed monthly. Never miss a movie again with SmartStream.
Hola usuario de eCash, la aplicación eCash está disponible en español. Cambiar el idioma de tu aplicación de eCash de inglés a español es rápido y sencillo. Déjame mostrarte cómo se hace. Primero, abre tu aplicación eCash. Introduce tu PIN. Toca el icono More en la parte inferior de tu pantalla. Selecciona Security. Selecciona Language. Y luego selecciona Spanish. Vuelve a introducir tu PIN y ya está. Tu aplicación de eCash está ahora en español y puedes seguir disfrutando de tu cartera digital eCash. La aplicación eCash de Belize Bank te hace la vida más fácil.
Welcome back to Open Your Eyes, and we're moving now into our third and final topic for the morning. Now this one is all about creme de la creme, man, you know, and that's a brand not only provides good food but also adopted a park, and you know, this is just great. We've got a guy in Raul Pelayo is in with us. Raul, good morning and welcome, my brother.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
So you're coming all the way from Harinjwak. You're coming from. You've got business going on everywhere, it seems.
So let me just start off. I mean, you know, we had the opportunity on March 9th to be in your space. We used quite a bit of your activities, but it really did trigger something important about a Belizean brand turning into a franchise. And that is not something we get to see all the time.
Yeah.
So Raul, let's hear your story. You know, you started off with, I think, the booth here in front of KHMH.
Yeah. And then from Princess
How long
Margaret
ago was
Drive,
that?
Yeah.
I think that started off officially as Creme de la Creme about 4 years now.
Okay.
Prior to Creme de la Creme, we were working out of a Fanta kiosk, a Coca-Cola or Boyne and Boyne kiosk. And we used to sell snacks, sweets, and stuff like this.
Okay.
And as the brand was taking form, we changed the structure. We put in the new name, Creme de la Creme, and that's when everything started. Once we noticed that the brand was something marketable and the public was accepting it, I wanted to try a new area or something different. My father has always been in the giving back business, right? Through the Juventus football team.
I remember.
Through that, I have to also live to his name and try to fill his shoes. So as Raul Pelayo Jr., I wanted to do something also important, giving back to the community, right? When we left at Princess Margaret Drive, we opened up a small Creme de la Creme on Albert Street. When we opened up Albert Street, it was a 5x9, small structure, fit one freezer, one employee.
Where was it?
Over Swing Bridge, on the right, Central Drugstore, right next door.
Oh, yeah. I remember it now.
Yes. So I stayed there for about a year and a half just to see if the product would sell. When I noticed that the product was moving, then I said, you know what, it's time to close this outlet down and find something that we could really market and expand. When we started with the park project, you know, that was a really big risk to see if this product would not only sell, but sell enough to sustain a community park. When we first started, it was only 3 employees, and today we're up to, on average, I think we're 25, 27 now strong.
Did you have this as a long-term plan when you first started here on Princess Margaret Drive, or did you just see the opportunity in how quickly you were growing?
Everything for me that I do has to be long-term. If it's not long-term, then it's hard and it's not worth doing. Right? When you put your heart and soul into something, you have to stick with it. Short-term goals are also good, but keep in mind that when it comes to a business, you have to stick with it. Most of these small businesses, like what we're doing, young entrepreneurial businesses, within the first 2 years, they tend to fail, right? Or close down. But if you only hold on for another year or so, it actually captures a market. And the minute you capture your market and you know what the product that you're selling and what the customers are demanding from you, then you can develop on what you have.
I can't imagine how many snack shop owners right now, and there are a lot of very popular ones, long lines, who are looking at you and saying, wow, you know, it is possible. What would be your, I mean, you talk about maintaining quality and kind of sticking with it, but how do you know when it's the right time to go from the popular snack shop to the franchise that you can get in multiple locations? What would you say as a word of advice?
To be honest, figure out what you want to do as a young entrepreneur. Figure it out or find what you love. For example, if coffee is your thing every morning and you now stop buying coffees at the gas stations or wherever you can find a service station to purchase coffee and you're making it at home and your coffee is what you enjoy the way you prepare it at home, share it with your family and friends. Now if they accept your brand or accept your product and enjoy it as much as you do, they are your first line of customers. You understand? And if they support you, then take it all the way. Live your dream.
Live your dream.
Don't stop. You will fail along the way, don't get me wrong. I've failed many, many times, but I've always kept getting back up and moving forward. So
your your testing on Albert Street is what spawned the development at the St. Cass Park, the Lighthouse Park.
Yes, I would say, I would attest to that, yes.
And I mean, if anybody passes there on a weekend night, clearly it was a good move for you.
Yes. It comes and it ties in as a package and not just a product. Because Creme de la Creme is a nice brand, but the package is also part of the park. Adapting the park, maintaining the park. The image of a clean environment is what really attracts the public. You understand? It's
but
not
what
just
was it?
one
Did
thing.
you offer to help in maintaining the park, or was it something that came along with getting the area?
When we took on the park, it wasn't part of an adoption plan. It was just setting the business in the park like a regular small business or young entrepreneur in the parks, like BTL Park and other park around. But we were the only one there, and the park was so dilapidated. For me, I had to spend to beautify the park so it can attract the product I have, bring more attention to the product. And by doing that, man, it actually opened up the idea and the possibility of this is something that could definitely work.
Well, you know, one of the things about that park, you know, you pass there on a Sunday night, it used to be very dark, and you know, especially the era where the children play. So that's about what is some of the work that you've done in that park.
Man, if I could start, hopefully pitches are here to help, because it's been 3 years in the making. When we started, there was hardly anything out there. Even the green grass you see was not available at the park. Everything was dried up. The soil was hard. The kids' play set was non-existent. Only 2 structures were standing up. Nothing else was out there. So we literally fertilized the grass. We painted and cleaned up the whole area. I didn't want to remove the old structures from the kids' play set. I wanted to build around it and incorporate it in, because for us, it's taking something old and bringing it back to life. And so some people, as simple as it may sound, they have an attachment to certain things. Even today at the park, people are saying, what did you do with the animals?
Oh, I was about to ask that. But it was gone before you got there.
It was gone before I got there, yes.
Yeah.
It was long gone before I got there. But if it's in my power and if it's in our budget, we would definitely bring it back. I think that would bring...
a great collaboration with like the IT vets that do some kind of cement work. They maybe could do something like that. But I love to hear that. And when we were there, we saw the difference, and even just lighting up the walkway, which is beautiful at night.
Yes.
It gives a different ambience to the park. So going back to, moving to this location, that was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you manage through the pandemic?
The pandemic was a tough year for us, I must say. So, for example, if you zoom on the popsicles we have on the display table here, we used to produce, I used to make the popsicles off these bins and put it in a regular freezer, right? And it would take me 4 days before I can sell 100 popsicles. Why? I prepare the mix, put it in the freezer. The next day I pull it back out, I put in the sticks, put it back in the freezer, and then the following day I pull it back out, I bag them, and then put it back in the freezer, and on the 4th day I can sell. But I had limited bins, so I was only selling 100 popsicles at a time. Now, for the COVID, just before the COVID hit, I had purchased a brand new equipment that can produce over 200 popsicles in 15 minutes.
Sweet.
And with that, and the flavors that we already carry, that we know are selling products, we already had our menu. Now we needed to mass produce. And for the COVID, all the employees and staff, when we closed, remember the first month, the country went on shutdown.
Yes.
We asked all our employees, go on Facebook, here's a menu, promote it on Facebook, make commission off every single sale, and we have a run-man delivery service that will deliver into the city free of charge.
Sweet.
And that's how.
And so you got new customers.
And I got new customers. We were selling on a down economy about 600 popsicles a week.
Wow.
So we
on
were
a down economy.
On a down economy.
So the investment in the equipment did pay off because this became your primary product at that point.
At that point,
because the stores were closed.
Correct.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what else do you have? What else do you have now besides the popsicles?
Besides the popsicles, we have some of the brownies, ice cream brownies. The video will show some pictures of food and different products we sell, but the ice cream brownies is also a product that really hits the market running. It's a chocolate brownie with 2 scoops of our creme de la creme ice creams that goes on top, and the public loves it. We can't make enough.
What do you think was really the takeoff point? It was the drinks, right?
The drinks.
Your drinks were, everybody was lining up for those drinks here on Princess Margaret Drive, I know, from the beginning. So that was kind of your entry point. And then you moved into other specialty items.
Well, I must give credit to my wife, Nadine.
Yeah.
She is the one that created she spent the time and hour mixing and matching these flavors. And putting it together for the menu for the drinks, and it was something. I had her first customer, and they had the test. I had the test.
So, what would you say is the signature product as of today?
As of today, it's the strawberry cheesecake smoothie, the mango chamoy smoothie.
My wife loved that one. Yeah.
The iced coffees, salt caramel coffee, frozen coffee, and now the popsicle has taken over a good portion of our markets. We now are selling more popsicles than we have ever sold.
Wow.
The manufacturing area of the popsicles used to be in a small area at 10 by 12, and now the plant is at 20 by 30.
Sweet.
With 5 freezers inside, all filled with thousands of popsicles that we have to produce and supply the city and other outlets. We have 1 store in Orange Walk that is selling our product, the De La Fuente Pharmacy in Orange Walk town, and they are also a popular brand of pharmacy, a chain pharmacy.
Yes, sir.
So we are teaming up with a lot of locals, and I'm trying to buy everything local. Due to the pandemic, it has driven me to go local and supply and support the locals like the local community is supporting us. So somebody that can grate the coconuts, I'll buy from you locally. Somebody that can produce mangoes and sell it to me, don't clean, don't chop up everything, I'll buy it.
those.
I'll buy it, package. Soursop, don't peel, don't clean, I'll buy it. And I tend to buy more than I normally need.
Because you can freeze it.
Because I freeze it and use it as I need it. So and the only reason I try to do it like this, because it encourages the young entrepreneur to say, you know what, if I can produce it, this guy will buy it. And he.
So what are some of the flavors? We have some here.
The first flavor in
flavors?
front of me is the iced coffee.
Oh.
Next to it is the coconut. Beside that is the mango chamoy.
There's a mango chamoy paletas.
And then
is it sweet or creamy? I mean, is it creamy or
no,
salty?
No cream, a little salt.
Okay.
Marlene, don't want that one.
They want to see it. This is the mango chamoy paletas. That's a very popular mixture for people.
Yes. Next to that is the peanut with peanut chunks in it.
Yeah.
The blue bubble gum. And this one is now one of the new hot selling product.
What is this?
This is the pina
colada.
With cherries inside and a little spike, not much.
It has alcohol.
Yes.
Oh, all right. So I'll hold this one.
You know, like the rum and raisin ideal.
Yeah.
We also have ideals in our store.
Yeah.
Flavors, rum and raisin, sugar corn. Another popular flavor we carry in the ideals, strawberry and chocolate, like that for the kids too.
Wow.
What's the cost of a paleta?
$3 Belize.
$3.
$3 Belize.
And remember, you know, they're all with natural, homegrown flavors.
All homegrown, all natural.
That's right.
Wow. No additives. It's not no flavoring per se.
Natural flavor.
Yes.
So I mean, this is just fascinating to hear your story, and I think that, you know, we feature a lot of small businesses, but I think showing examples of people who start off with one idea and grow it into something like this is, it's a lesson for all who are watching. And I understand now your franchise has officially gone into multiple districts. You are now opening in Orange Walk.
Orange Walk. We are already in Orange Walk. September 11th, we opened Orange Walk. The casting for Orange Walk for staffing for the Orange Walk product. We had over 108 people that showed up.
Wow!
What?
Just for I could have only employed 6 at the time.
Okay.
So.
Oh man, that must have been tough.
So there's a creme de la creme
Belize
PM
City.
Drive, and the seaside by the Bliss Lighthouse, and now there's a creme de la creme in Orange Walk.
Correct.
What's your next spot? Because I know you got eyes out there.
Yes. We do have other invitations to go other districts. We have already selected another park in another district.
That's nice.
I won't give out which district yet, but definitely we will be in another district.
Okay.
But for now, we are more focused on both parks. My goal for this year, I've told my staff and my team, without you guys, we would never come this far. Before I go to what's coming next, I must give credit to the staff. The frontline personnel that are in the store making the smoothies and the shakes. It takes a lot of dedication, quality control, and patience to keep focus, because when the orders start piling in, it takes time to not to make a mistake. And so I must give credit to Belize City first, because Belize City, the team of Belize City over the past 3 years has been hardworking, dedicated. Some of our employees from Belize City, once they come with us, I tell them, look, all I want is a year. If you give me a year, I am happy. If you're coming for a month or 2, don't waste my time. Because I won't waste your time. You know, what we're doing is building a brand that will make a difference in a community. So come, join the team for a year and learn from us. I teach them not only to make the smoothies or sell the product. The goal is for them to learn the inventory, the check and balance, how to manage and operate a young business or a small business that in the end if they decide that this is something that they want to do, we are here to encourage them to do the same.
This guy.
We have employees that have left and moved to either different businesses or government offices, and this is their entry-level jobs with us. So they learn the discipline of dress code, coming to work on time, working as a team, and being proactive. Very, very good ethics. I must give credit. Recently, I have a young lady that just left this weekend that passed, and she moved on to a government office, Ms. Jaslyn. So if she's listening, you know, Jaslyn, I give you credit because she did really good for us. She's one of our star players, and when she checked out to move on to bigger and better things, I was happy supporting her. Yes, and then they look back and they give me credit. Say, you know, Mr. Raul, I don't think I'll meet another boss like you, man. But that's what we do. Miss Kerry also was with us. She moved on to bigger and better things. And the list goes on.
And that can be a hope for them. And I think that will keep them dedicated to working with you.
This
is, you know, so we have to say congratulations, I think, in being able to establish a brand and now a franchise, 3 locations, and paletas available in multiple locations right now.
Not so soft paletas too.
Not so
soft paletas, not so soft paletas, and I'm talking about the flavors here. All right. Nice.
But they're good.
You are an inspiration, my brother, and we could only wish you all the very best. All right, and thank you for joining us this morning, coming all the way from Harinjua to join us this morning. Wishing you well.
Thank you very much. Give credit to my Harinjua crew, because without my Harinjua crew, we wouldn't have accomplished what we're doing now in Harinjua.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so very much. We're about to take our final break of the morning. When we come back, we'll be wrapping things up. And I'm defeating the paletas still. So you stay with us. We'll be back.
It's almost lunchtime and Alice is getting hungry and forgot to bring cash. She remembers that eCash now has a geolocation feature in which she can easily view the eCash merchants near her, especially restaurants. Her co-workers also ask her to order food for them.
Chicken chow mein, please, and a Coke.
The merchant sends her the payment link. She taps confirm, and within a few minutes, her food is delivered. Alice then views her transaction history and taps on the transaction recently made. Then taps the split the bill button, where she selects the unevenly option and moves the bar to the desired amount per person. The request is then sent to her friends. Her colleagues accept the request and are ready to enjoy their meals. Geolocation and splitting the bill via eCash make Alice's life a whole lot easier.
Applying for a Social Security sickness benefit? Here's what you need to know. A complete claims package include 1. Sickness claim form fully completed by the claimant and medical doctor. 2. Salaries record form completed by the employer or HR representative. 3. Proof of bank account such as bank book, online banking, or statement displaying your name and account number. To submit via email, you need to take a clear photo or scan of the documents and email to claims@socialsecurity.org.bz. Be sure to include your full name, social security number, and benefit type in the subject line of the email. Or you can drop off all completed forms into the Dropbox slot at the nearest branch office. Deadline to submit is 14 days from your first day of illness. All forms are available on the website at www.socialsecurity.org.bz. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
Download the SmartStream app on the Android Play Store and create your account to get access to movies and stream at home or on the go. Prepaid customers can purchase regular data packages or get a discounted rate on a special SmartStream package by dialing 7737. Postpaid customers will be billed monthly. Never miss a movie again with SmartStream.
All right, and we
Just like
are
that.
back.
Yeah, we're back.
Just to say thank you for
Thank
tuning
you.
in. Some really interesting conversations.
Very.
A bit of a reflection on what the past 2 years of the pandemic has been like. I think, you know, when we look back to those times, we realize how much we have adapted since then. It helps in being able to know more about the disease, and also just recognizing that while we have to be as careful in protecting each other's health, we still have to keep things moving in the
Indeed,
country.
we're creatures of habit, and we are very reluctant to change. But this one had changed us, and at this particular point, we've learned a lot of things, like you mentioned, from this pandemic. But let's continue to be safe, Belize. All right, and we also want to say a big thank you to Mr. Sharp and of course to Jane for coming in. How important it is for women in sports. We're actually in Women's Month. And it is very important for us to highlight and put our women in the forefront because they well deserve so. And make a face the fuck, they're just better. They're just better. And so therefore,
nobody
thank you
believes
so
you.
very
They think
much.
you're just saying
yes,
that.
and to be honest with you, my lady, you know how to preach this, preach this, preach this. And so therefore, we're so thankful for them to join us to have joined us this morning. Thank you so very much.
All right, and we want to thank Raul Pelayo from Creme de la Creme, talking about how he built a franchise in Belize. It definitely took a lot of work and determination to stick it through. But it really is a fascinating story how you go from a snack shop to now having 3 locations
and a park.
in 2 districts. And so a great lesson to other entrepreneurs out there. Of course, you know, we love highlighting our small businesses. And so this was a really great story as well.
Thank you, thank you. And of course, finally, thank you for joining us this morning. You actually woke up and you open your eyes and start your morning right with we this morning. And so we're thankful. But if you've got questions, concerns, drop us a line at oye@channel5belize.com.
You can also find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram
at OYE Belize. You can join us again tomorrow morning when you open your eyes.
to start your morning right.
And as per usual, you could keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open. We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.